my job today is to give somewhat of an international perspective to this problem, because I think most people and a lot of business people take our courts for granted in this country. You know that if you have a dispute, you can go down to the courthouse, you can file suit, you pay the filing fee, you turn in your papers, it's stamped, it's put in the system, it's assigned to a judge. Eventually, you'll get a decision in your case, and you expect that the decision will be based on the law, not on the identity of the parties, not on who's paid a judge more money. You expect it'll be made fairly. We expect that you get a fair shake, and if the trial court doesn't get it right, you can go to the Court of Appeals, and they can correct the trial court's decision. But about 15 years ago, when many US companies were starting to invest in China and other parts of the developing world in Asia, and I worked in the State Department in a group that dealt with international investment disputes and claims. And I used to get calls once a week from somebody representing a US company, and the stories were very similar. It goes something like this. We entered into a contract, a joint venture with a Chinese company. We decided we were going to build a factory to produce toys or rubber gloves, whatever it was. We paid most of the upfront costs. Our agreement required a split of the profits so that the upfront costs, capital costs, would be repaid, and then we'd split the profits this way. We built the factory, started producing the toys, the money was rolling in, and all of a sudden the checks stopped coming to the US company. And they couldn't get their Chinese venture partner to answer their phone calls, answer their mail. So finally they would decide the only thing they could do was go to the courts to enforce their contract. And they'd go to the courthouse, and a funny thing would happen. They'd say, oh, you can't file those papers unless you have the approval of so-and-so higher up in the government. Or you've got to pay this exorbitant fee. Or they'd file the case and it would be lost in the system, never to be heard of again. And they couldn't refile until the old case was found. And these people would call the State Department and say, they would just repeat over and over, the courts can't do this. They can't do this. They have to file, they have to hear our case. And you'd say, well, no, they don't. They don't have to hear your case. And that's the risk when judges aren't independent, when they are beholden to whether it's a campaign contributor or some other powerful interest or the government or somebody else who can take away their salary, take away their job, make sure they don't get paid for a couple of months. So Justice O'Connor mentioned that we're the only country in the world that elects judges. We had a group of judges from Ghana visiting not too long ago, the Supreme Court of Ghana, and they were just appalled that the system that they revered in this country, that we elect our judges. And you think, well, why were they shocked? It's pretty obvious for the reasons we've already heard. And we all like to talk about our polling data, but Justice at Stake did a poll not too long ago where 76% of Americans think that campaign cash affects decisions in the courtroom. And in a similar poll, 26% of America's state judges agreed with that. And that is scary to me. So whether these perceptions are accurate or not, the money, the attention from these special interest groups, it is definitely undermining judicial independence and faith in the judiciary. And as you heard from Justice O'Connor, and you will hear from Chief Justice McGregor, I think we're very lucky in Arizona to have the courts we have and to have the system in place for selecting and retaining our judges. But I think as Pete will address and Justice O'Connor touched upon, we can't take it for granted. And judges don't have a natural constituency to stand up for them and make their arguments for them. And Justice O'Connor simply can't do it all by herself. Chief Justice Roberts likes to quote President Reagan when he said that a judge's determined commitment to the preservation of our rights is a commitment that often requires the lonely courage of a patriot. And I think that's a good shorthand for what we expect our judges to do. They have to have the courage of a patriot to make unpopular decisions, and that's the only thing that upholds the rule of law in this country, preserves our constitutional rights and our freedoms. And we put judges in a really difficult spot when they know that special interest groups are going to do TV ads like this based on a decision they have to make in order to enforce the law rather than to just do what would be popular. So I think that judges should be able to depend on us, whether we're members of the bar, whether we are retired judges, whether we are members of the business community, to defend their independence. And I hope that Pete is going to tell us how we can all become involved in that effort in the state of Arizona.